All right, so we are making great progress here. So we're able to clear the text areas, both of them, and create a new card. Now we need to actually be able to save this card into a file, right? Because that's the whole idea. Because later we'll have to go back and get that file we saved, which will contain all of the questions and answers, and then read them back to us. Needless to say, so what we need to do here is actually look at the Save Manual Listener. Okay, let's go and find Save Manual Listener. Let's get rid of this. Here, what we need to do is create a card again, right? An actual card, and then add to our card list array list, okay? And then, most importantly, we'll have to create a file dialog with file chooser, okay? Which all of this comes with Java, so we don't have to do a lot of work because there's classes that we can use to do all of that. Okay, so let's start here. We're gonna go ahead and say FlashCard, card again, new FlashCard. Of course, we're gonna just pass in the question, whatever it's inside of our question text area, getting the text, and we are going to say answer that get text. There we go. We've done this before, so now we have a card again. Okay. And we're gonna go say card list. We can add this card that we just created. Perfect. Now we have to create a file dialog with file chooser, which will allow us to go and find where the file we are creating is going to be saved. And so how we do that? Well, like there's already a class that we can do that with. Okay, so we can say jfile chooser. There we go. Right? I'm gonna file save. I'm gonna instantiate it. File chooser. So here we have this handle here, file save, which is a type of file chooser, which will have all the functionalities or functions we need to actually show a file chooser when somebody clicks file. So essentially what I'm saying here is the same as this. If you go here on top and say file, you see this. Now, next what we do, we say file save, which is a file chooser. We say .show dialog, show open dialog, okay? And we're gonna, where is this gonna be shown from? Well, from our parent frame, which our main frame here. So we're gonna pass in the frame. That's the context of this application, right? So we have to pass in our frame. And then we're gonna call a method which we haven't created called save file. And then we'll pass the file save that get selected file. So the save file method we're going to create right now here in a second here, we'll have to take a file type as a parameter, right? So let's go ahead and create this save file method here. There we go, there's save file. Let's get it outside of here. Since we have everything outside, let's put it here. There we go. As you can see, the moment we do that, it's a type file selected that will be passed inside of our save file, which is exactly what we need because we are passing a file, an actual file, to be saved. Okay, now let's implement this save file here. Now, this is the fun part. This is where the writing happens, okay? In this case here, we are going to use another class called buffered writer class. Previously, we talked about a lot of different ways we can use to save and write files to and from flat files. And we've talked about different ways, you know, byte streams and so forth. But now we are going to use an even better class that will take care of all of overhead or all of efficiencies for us when we're writing and reading files called buffered writer. We're going to use this class buffered writer because of its efficiency reasons. If you're looking at just 2-3 files, that's fine. It's not a big deal. But if you are writing bigger applications that are reading thousands or millions of files, right? And that really happens. You need a better way to deal with all of the overhead, memory overhead, and so forth. So buffered writer always works. Okay, that's what we're going to be using here. It's also really easy to use, of course. Okay, now, of course, since we're dealing with files, saving stuff, we always have to be safe. We have to make sure that whatever we're doing, it's safe because things may happen, right? So that's why we're going to use try catch block here. Okay, so the first thing we do, we are going to create the buffered writer class. So say buffered writer object. There it is. As you can see, we've used buffer reader and so forth, but in this case, buffer writer. We're going to call it writer. Instantiate this and say new buffer writer. Now we have to pass in the file that we are going to write to, right? In this case, it's going to be selected file, which is being passed here. But not just that. In this case, we need to pass in a file writer type, okay? So we're going to say new, we're chaining everything here, new file writer, which then will have to pass the selected file. So what we're doing here, we're instantiated this other class called file writer, right? Which we have to pass in the actual file. And then that's when the buffer reader will be instantiated and be ready to go. Now, when we talked about array lists, we talked about ways in which we can loop through them. Now I'll show you a different way, which is a little bit better. I don't think it will be better to use this in a bigger application, but this works for us for now. We're going to use another class called iterator, okay, which will allow us to create an iterator. So essentially something that will allow us to iterate through a array list quicker and easily. So that way we can actually go through our array list of cards, right, and do what we need to do. In this case, get stuff and write to file. Okay, so we're going to create this class. So we're going to say iterator. There we go. Right. And now notice the iterator you have to pass in what kind of object you're going to be iterating through. In this case, it's going to be a FlashCard, right? Because those are objects we're going to be iterating through, essentially the FlashCards. Okay, so we're going to give it a name of card iterator. Okay, and I'm going to say it's equal to card list dot iterator. Okay, so now we have this handle here, card iterator, which has all of the card items, all of the cards we have put in this card list here, which is our array list that contains all of the cards. Now we can just say while, okay, card iterator dot has next. Notice now we have this method we can use instead of saying for I is equal to 0, I plus plus less than blah, blah, blah. We don't have to do that. Now we have a has next, meaning it goes through this card iterator because we know now this card iterator object here knows everything about the card list, knows everything, the size and the stuff that it contains, right? So now and not only that, and it has the has next method, which returns true or false if it has a next item inside of this card list array list, right? So we can take advantage of that. So we're saying while there is a next item inside of this array, okay, then we need to do something. In this case, we're just going to write stuff to our writer. So we're going to go ahead and say FlashCard here. I'm going to call card is equal to card iterator dot next. You know, there's no errors here. Everything is fine, but it's always important to cast certain object because sometimes we don't know. We really want to make sure that whatever it's coming from the next method, whenever it's coming from our iterator, whatever it's coming from our card list as it's being read through the iterator, right? We want to make sure it's an actual flashcard. And we know it's gonna be, right? Because we know that this iterator has flashcard items. But just to be safe, I always like to say flashcard like this. So this will guarantee me that whatever it's coming out of this iteration here, of this card iterator from our card list array list, it's always going to be flashcard. Again, you don't have to put it now, but I like to do that way. They like this that way. You know, it's always, I'm guaranteed to always be receiving flashcard, even though we always will. But it's just a precautious measure here. Okay, perfect. So now we have a card through our iterator, card iterator. So now we can say writer. Remember, our writer is our buffer writer object here. Okay, and it's ready to write. So we can say writer.write. And look at this write, we can pass in a string. So what are we going to pass? Well, we're going to pass card because we know each card already has a question and an answer. So we can say writer.write and we pass in card dot get question. Well, why get question? Because we know our flashcard when we created it here, right? We have our get question, get answer, set answer. You see? Object-oriented programming is so much fun. Everything is so great. So in this case, we're going to say get question, right? Because that's what we're going to write first. And then what we're going to do, we're going to append or add a forward slash. And then we're going to write again, writer.write. And we're going to say card, again, the same card, dot get answer. And then now we are just going to append a new line, which is backslash and n. That means a new line. So what's happening here? Again, we went ahead and instantiated our writer. We pass in the selected file, which is whatever file we're passing in here, okay? And then we created a flashcard type iterator, which just essentially would allow us to iterate through our array easily. And we get this has next method here in our while to say, which says card iterator. If it has more items, it will go through this until this is not true, right? So inside of our while loop here, we have created a card, okay, which essentially will get from our card iterator, okay? So now here we are writing the question and the answer. Now this, what happens here, it's going to be like this. So the idea, what are we doing here? We're saying when we write this to file, we want the format to be like this. We want the question, for instance, where is Mozambique, to be like that. And then we're going to put a forward slash and then something like that, Africa, and then a new line. This is what we're saying. We're saying as we write this to text, this is the format we want it to be. Whereas, so the question and then the answer, delimited by a forward slash. And then after that, we just put a new line. So it just goes like this, next line. Okay? It's just a format that we decided that will be the best for us. Again, what we're doing here with this iterator, we could have very well done something like this. We could have said for flashcard, okay, card, we've seen this, of type, in card list. All right, this is a different for loop. So we're saying card of type flashcard will hold all of the cards inside of our card list array list. And then we could have said writer.write, the same thing we did here. Just paste there. Totally the same thing. It's just that I just wanted to show you a different method of doing that. In fact, I'll just go like this. I'll just comment this out so you know you can do the same thing. And of course, after we've done that, we always have to close our writer. Because remember, a lot of things going on. We're doing a lot of memory intensive calculations and activities. So we need to close our writer. That's what you always have to do. That close. Perfect. So in our exception here, we can print something out. We can say system, and we can just go ahead and say couldn't write to file. Okay, and then we can say e.print stack. We've seen this before. And that's it. So we were able to create save to file. So now if you go back here, save file, we are passing in the file that we are getting from our show open dialog chooser, which is a file chooser here. Let's go ahead and save this and run so you can see things in action. Let's run this. So now if I just write something here and say file and say save, I should be able to, there's a problem. I think I did something very stupid here, something wrong. So here is actually not show open dialog. It should be show save dialog, because I don't want to open a file. I want to save a file somewhere, right? So let's change this to show save dialog. Let's go ahead and say file save dot show save dialog, and let's pass in our frame. That should do it. So now if I save this, you're gonna see the difference. Let's run again. Look at this. So if I say hello there, hi, so this is just random, and say save, gives me the save as. I can say quiz 2, and I can go to desktop and save it there. And if I go next and I say hello world, nope. Say next, blah blah blah, something. Next, it's all saved. Actually, I can go to my desktop. I should see it. Let me see. It should be something that says quiz 2. I see it there. And there we go. Hello there, and that weird text there. Okay, so that means it's saving perfectly. So now we're able to save the file as intended. In the next video, we'll be able to then read back what we've saved. But also means we have to create another class that will allow us to play everything back or show everything back that we have saved. All right, so I'll see you in the next video.